My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. Hey y'all, look at me, I'm filming in the morning time. I've grown a bit weary over the past couple of weeks of all of my videos looking like it's the dead of night, and it's not the dead of night. The sun has been setting at like 4 o'clock, so if I come home at 4:30 and film a couple videos, which is habitually what I do, like that's usually my filming window, these days when I do that, it's all night filming, and I know that it's fine and it is cozy with the Christmas lights and all of that, but I just wanted to throw in at least a couple of videos in December where it looks like daylight is upon us. So I decided to just film right now. Joe just left for work, and this is usually the window of time during which I focus on my writing projects. And then after that, I go and I work on my sewing for the business, and then after that, if there's time, I come home and film. And today I'm doing it all topsy-turvy. I'm going to film now, then I'll work on my writing projects, and then I'll work on my sewing, and if it all takes too much time, I'll just have to sew late into the evening, but we have leftovers for dinner tonight, so it's going to be okay. That's my logic. I'm sure you don't care. I really want to film this quick video about the makeup that I thought I wanted, that I was kind of surprised to discover was not on my Christmas wish list, theoretical or otherwise. I recently filmed a video about the makeup that is on my theoretical wish list, like makeup that I'm kind of sitting over here wishing would just drop into my lap. And some of it I've actually actively made known to my family that it's like things that I would enjoy, and some of it it's just my private list. It's just my private list of wishes, and that's totally fine because none of those desires are powerful enough to cause me to actually go out and spend my budget on those things. And the question of why they aren't powerful enough, that was kind of what that video was about. But it made me think, because when I was putting together that list, there were a number of things that I was like, oh yeah, I kind of wanted that back in the day, or there was a time at which I would have gladly put that on a theoretical or a concrete wish list. But then when I really held my own feet to the fire about that item, I realized that I didn't actually want it anymore. I actually don't really want it to drop into my lap. So that's what this video is. It's a list of things that I thought at one time that I wanted, or that really up until recently, until I really thought about it, I thought I wanted. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. I actually feel a bit different filming in the morning. I feel chipper in a different way. It's kind of interesting. I used to film all the time, like morning, night, it was all mixed together. And recently I've been filming in the afternoon and evening a lot, and I've also been having such a busy time, and so I've often been really tired when I'm filming. That's been true of a lot of my videos lately, and it wasn't always like that, so it's nice to kind of come back to like a fresh start moment for filming. Also, this is the first time since my haircut that I've worn my hair in a ponytail. I think it might look a little dweeby. I feel like my bangs look a little dweeby, but we're just going with it. This is what's happening. So the first thing on my list is something recent, and you guys were with me. You saw me go through really loving this release, super wanting it, and then almost within a week being like, not only do I not really want to buy that anymore, like I really wouldn't even want to receive it as a gift. That's how much I don't want it. And it's the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. It is still such a pretty release and innovative for this time of year, and yet gripping. So many people just died when it released. So many people wanted it. So many people did buy it and review it. And it got really good reviews. The one that I'm thinking of that I remember the best is the review from Amanda at Makeup Just for Fun. She loves that palette. She's gaga over it, and she did really close-up swatches, and she did looks, and she loves the textures, and she loves the colors. And I think I heard her say recently that she's using it off camera a ton. Curiously, it was her video with the really close-up swatches that made me realize that I don't feel anymore like a driving need for that palette, because it was that old thing that happens where when it first released, it seemed magical. It seemed like unicorn breath and fairy wings and clouds floating with sun hitting their curves. It just seemed like this dream. It seemed like you could own something that's unownable, that you could hold something that's not holdable, and it seemed like by owning that palette you could take those beautiful things and kind of like pump them into your identity and make yourself more like those things. Like, that was how I felt about it when it first released. And it was partly the colors and the fact that those colors don't usually seduce me, but there was something about the way they were presented there that did seduce me, and that made me really excited. I was like, maybe this could be part of me as well, even though I usually don't think of it as such. And then it was also the textures. Those textures were really well advertised, and they're really beautiful and creamy and just glimmery and yummy and crushy. I wanted my hands in all of those little pots. But when I saw Amanda's swatches, and mind you, again, she was raving about the palette through the entire video and she loves it. And we even chatted a little bit in DMs and she was talking about how much she absolutely loves it and how impressed she is by the formula. I mean, it was a totally positive review. And yet, when I saw her close-up swatches, it reminded me that it's just eyeshadow. And it's really beautiful eyeshadow, beautiful colors and good formulas, but it's just eyeshadow. It's not rainbow breath and unicorn wings and clouds with curves hitting their suns. It's not. It's just eyeshadow, and I have so much eyeshadow, and I have Cliona multichromes and glitter multichromes, and I have JD Glow Galaxy shadows, and I have all of the mattes that I ever think I'm ever going to use because I don't use matte shadows that often. So nothing in the form of eyeshadow should be seducing me right now. That really hit home when I saw her close-up swatches. And some eyeshadow has still seduced me. There is some eyeshadow on my theoretical actual wish list, but there was something about this palette. I think it was the stuff about it that seduced me was not concrete. And as soon as the scales fell from my eyes with regards to those things, the palette no longer was attractive to me. So it was on my wish list for a hot second and then it was gone. This next one to me is very, very interesting. I thought that this would go on my actual concrete wish list for a long time. And I even keep wavering a tiny bit. I'm like, should I put it on there? Should I? I keep thinking that, but I haven't yet. And so it's on this list and it's the Natasha Denona Mini Gold Palette. Just $25. That's a great gift. And so it's a good thing to ask for. It gives the option of getting something really special and luxury that would make me happy and excited to use, but that it's just $25, right? And that's like, it's like a beautiful gift. I feel like the quality of the gift kind of outstrips the actual price that a gift giver would be paying. And so it's sort of an ideal thing to have sort of floating in the ether in the holiday season with regards to makeup lovers. And that's one of the reasons that I've been thinking all of this time that I would put it on my concrete Christmas wish list. I also do love the shape and size of those little Natasha Denona palettes. I had the Mini Star palette for a really long time and I loved it and I used it a lot. I ended up decluttering it just in an effort to keep whittling and culling my collection, and I gave it away to someone who really, really loves it, like loves it and uses it more than I ever could. So that was all very well and good, but I was attracted. I know I love that little size and I love the idea of the Natasha Mini Gold. And I have the gold palette and it's not dupes for the shadows in the gold palette. It's supposed to be complimentary. You would think that I would want it. I would think that I would want it. I would think that it was on my wish list. I just have so much eyeshadow and I have so much Natasha Denona eyeshadow. I want to use the actual gold palette. I want to hit pan on that palette more than I have. I have hit pan, I think, on at least one shade in there. But I really am getting to the end of my own rope. And this whole year, it's been kind of a push-pull between me voraciously loving new things and being so excited and overexcited about the fact that I'm on the receiving end of some free stuff and just not being able to mitigate at all the excitement about just trying and trying and trying a bunch of new stuff, especially because it's not putting me into debt like it used to. So there's all that going on, and that experience is kind of like smack up against this part of me that just doesn't want extra stuff, just wants fewer, nicer things, really wants to hold on to this ethos of using what I have and loving what I have and not always being distracted by what's new and shiny, whether it's free or something that I would have to pay for. So those two sides of myself, both of which I think are natural and like inherent to me, and both of which are okay. I'm not judgy. I'm not judgy about the first thing, because of course it's like that. I love beautiful things, and some of the opportunities that I've had to review things and try things have been spectacular, and I'm really glad that I didn't say no to them, right? So that's fine. And the other thing is true and genuine to me, and also fine, the desire for like a more streamlined life, more minimal life. Both of those things are fine, and I think it's okay to be having those go head to head and to be in this sort of middle space and not knowing and constantly negotiating those two things. I'm not saying that there's a problem. I'm just saying that this is what's going on and it's very interesting. And one thing that got ousted from my list of desires in that process, in that battle, is the Natasha Denona Mini Gold palette. And I think it's because I haven't really been using my greens. It's essentially a green, like a greeny gold palette, and it gives this green dimension to the actual gold palette if you put them together. But I have that Kaleidos Sci-Fi Green palette, and it's super beautiful, and I think I could get any of those same looks putting the Sci-Fi Green palette together with the Natasha Denona Gold palette. And I did some really powerful green looks a couple of months ago, a bunch of them in a row. Some of them are on Instagram. I really loved doing that, and I just haven't been moving that much into that green space lately. Even though it's the holiday season, I really just haven't been reaching for greens. So I just am like, be realistic, Hannah. Like, it's cute, it's beautiful, it's Natasha Denona, but I have so many Natasha Denona eyeshadows. I have so many gold eyeshadows. I have so many greeny gold eyeshadows, and I have so many eyeshadows, period. And so it just wouldn't make me that happy. It just wouldn't make me that happy. So why would I put it on my wish list, theoretical or otherwise? Similarly, perhaps, although very different in style and different in the way that I would interact with it, just similarly because there's also eyeshadow, is the ColourPop X KathleenLights So Jaded palette. The ColourPop X KathleenLights So Jaded palette. That was when, just like Huda Beauty, when that came out, I was like, be still my heart. I wanted it. I wanted it. And I still respect the way that it looks, the color story, the general release. It's still yummy to me, and I feel like it's gotten good reviews, and it's the kind of thing that if I had never come onto YouTube and my collection of eyeshadow had never become unwieldy, and I was sort of jonesing for just a little infusion of excitement into it, and I probably, even if I had never started a YouTube channel, would have still gotten really into single shadows. I think that's just my bent. Then I would have loved to buy that palette or receive it as a gift and depot it and use the singles, mix them in among my other singles. But I don't need to do that right now. I have that gorgeous tiled floor of singles from Adept. That's enough. It's all the same stuff. It's just as shiny, just as special, just as color diverse, just as exciting and very, very beautiful and tactily satisfying. I mean, I just have everything that that palette would have given to me, whether I had depotted it or not, whether I bought it or received it as a gift. And so even though it really perked my antennas up when it was released, and I felt this kind of like, oh yeah, like that's for me. Like it's one of those things that was released where I'm within the demographic of people that it's for. Not in terms of how much I already have, but just in terms of what I like. Because I like ColourPop, I like jewel tones, I like rich, creamy textured color, etc., and mixed with neutrals as well. All that being true, I still don't want to receive that object into my life. So it's no longer on the wish list of things I might buy, or the wish list of things I might like, or the wish list of things I might want to receive as a gift. This is one that was on my list when I made a video about makeup everyone owns except me. I feel like everyone has those darn CoverFX blush duos, and I've wanted one too for a really long time. So for ages, I had a couple of them in my Sephora cart, and my Sephora, which is just a place, it's like a, my Sephora cart is just like another tier of my loves list, because I never buy anything from Sephora anymore pretty much. So it's just things hang out in my cart so I can kind of like visit them, but it's not like I'm actually planning to buy them. But I had a couple in my cart for a while. I had a couple on my loves list. I would go back and look at the colors and decide which one I wanted. I like the peachy one. I like the bronzy ones. And they look so pretty. And I don't know. I kind of thought all this time I've been thinking that when the holidays rolled around, I would pop one of those on my holiday wish list and then just see if someone decided to get it for me. And then I would have the chance to play around with it, and I could join the effing party that everyone's at except me, playing with their CoverFX blushes and putting them all over their faces. But I don't think I want to go to that party anymore. I just have so much beautiful blush, and I would just mix the two sides together. And so then why is it a duo? And really none of the colors is that like bronzy, like super pale and super bronzy nude. They're all quite pigmented. They're all kind of peachy and pink, or then the bronzy ones are like quite deep and bronzy. There isn't really like my perfect color. So I was sort of trying to generate excitement about colors that are second string for me. And when it came down to it and it was the moment of truth and I went to pick one to put on my wish list, I was like, it's done. We're done. Unless they expand the color range, I'm never going to actually want one of those. Pat McGrath, Midnight Sun. That is one of my favorite palette releases of the year. I love the color story. I love that purple with that green, and yet it's grungy. I feel like it's her only grungy palette. It's the only grungy palette she's ever released. The colors of Pat McGrath palettes, the color stories, are very gripping and editorial and in many cases original, but she tends toward more primary colors. Like the blues tend to be like pretty teal or pretty cobalt. The purples tend to be pretty grape. The yellows tend to be pretty sunshine. You know what I'm saying? Like the reds tend to be pretty primary. They just tend to be kind of like these mid brightness colors. And I really like colors that look like they were mixed with brown or mixed with gray, mixed with dirt, just like crushed in to some rocks, and I don't know, mixed with a little bit of like soot. Like that's what I like. And I feel like she doesn't really do that with color. And in that way, our tastes are a little bit different. So as much as I am drawn to the idea of that special formula, and as much as I've always wanted to try her, and I still have, and I hope that one day I still will try some Pat McGrath eyeshadows, because I've literally never put them on my eyes. I've swatched them at Sephora, but I've never put them on my eyes. I think that that's the thing that's keeping me from prioritizing acquiring some Pat McGrath palettes. But when Midnight Sun came along, I was like, this is it. This is the one. I'm gonna put this on my Christmas wish list. It would be the perfect, like, one beautiful gift for someone to get for me. I'm gonna prioritize it as like a wish list item. I was like, this is perfect. It's the one for me. And since then, I've just become, I keep saying this over and over again in this video because I'm talking about a lot of eyeshadow, but I've just become hyper aware of how much eyeshadow I have and how long it takes to use up. And once again, as the year comes to a close and I realize that I've had my gold palette for 1 year and that I'm just using everything so lightly over time, I'm kind of doubling down. And I just don't feel like it would be as exciting, given my current mindset about eyeshadow and my current commitment to what I have. I don't feel like it would be as exciting to receive even the most beautiful eyeshadow palette as a gift, even the one Pat McGrath palette that I've ever truly connected with in terms of its theming and its color story, to receive that as a gift. I just don't feel like it would be as exciting. It's not that I don't want it in theory. Again, it's this like back and forth thing again. Like if someone offered it to me, I would be like, not only would I be like, yes, queen, but I would be so excited. Like I would be glad and I would play with it and it would probably get a lot of use out of me. I would probably get a lot of use out of it. And that would be all very well and good. But I'm trying to keep that membrane up between me and more eyeshadow, between me and that brand actually, because I've never owned a palette from that brand. So as seduced as I am by the whole thing, Pat herself, the idea of her artistry, what she's done in the world, the brand she's built, everything is spot on. Like I love it. From afar, I follow her future career with great interest and I love it. I don't know, I just can't bring myself to actually want a $120 eyeshadow palette of any kind more than I want like a pair of good sneakers or a pair of good boots. Right now, I just can't. So it didn't actually make it onto my theoretical or my concrete wish list. And neither did the other one that I've liked, which is Bronze Seduction, the one from last year with the red. I did like that one. At that time, it was my favorite one that she's released so far, but Midnight Sun completely blew it out of the water. So if I'm not wishing for Midnight Sun, then I'm not wishing for Bronze Seduction either. The last thing I wanted to say about Pat McGrath is that the major draw to me has always been those special shades. The thing that really seduces me about her line and the idea of her big palettes, it's those really multi-dimensional sparkly ones with the delicious Instagram pictures where everything's just like sheeny. It looks like liquid sparkle being painted onto the eye. That's always what I wanted to get my hands on. And one of the things that this year brought me was a bunch of unbelievably stunning single eyeshadows from indie brands. So I had my ones from JD Glow. I also spent some of my budget placing a second order from JD Glow and getting even more of their Galaxy shadows, which are just the best of the top of the pile. And I think Georgia even talks about them being kind of equivalent to the ones from Pat McGrath. And some people have talked about how they prefer the JD Glow formula. So I can only assume, I haven't swatched them side by side, but I can only assume there's something kind of similar going on, that you're getting something kind of similar delivered to you. And then the ones from Clionadh, many of them are rich in the same way as the ones from JD Glow. And I have so many, I just feel like I'm good. Even for special shades, even for the most truly extraordinary thing you can think of, I'm good. So I feel like I've said my piece about eyeshadow. I feel like we're vibing. You get what's going on. You know what I'm gonna say. But another palette that's on this list is the Nabla Mystic palette. And weirdly, there is an eyeshadow palette that made it onto my actual wish list. It was in that other video. And it is also from Nabla. It's the Nabla Cutie palette. And I think that the reason that one squeaked through is because of that shiny black, because it sort of seems to promise like a bouncy satiny formula in a palette that I don't have. So there is something new. It's got the sort of the promise of the new and the promise of this like satisfied desire, which is for like a super creamy, sort of cream to powder, shimmery black. And it also has this strong endorsement from Mariah Leonard. So there are all these factors that made the Cutie palette, the Cutie Nude, make it onto my wish list, even though I have all of these strong feelings against acquiring more eyeshadow even as a gift. But the Nabla Mystic palette, which one would think would be the one that I would actually want, because the color story is spot on for me. The textures, it's supposed to have like 5 different textures in it. Everything about it, you would think that it would be my dream palette. I would think that. It just didn't make it through. I think that there's sort of like an overlay of gray over every eyeshadow palette that releases these days, because just of where I'm at thinking about my own collection and thinking about what I want in my life. I watched that release as if through like binoculars really, really far away, almost like I could barely see it. And I was like, wow, I would like to get closer to that, but I just don't feel like making the trek. That's kind of... All right, let's talk about some lipstick releases that really gripped me this year, but that have not stayed with me long enough to make it onto my list. One is the Huda Beauty Power Bullet Matte Lipsticks, and the other is the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. I just love those kinds of colors. There are a bunch of weird sort of pukey yellowish browns in both of those collections. I'm all about that life, and I just feel like I have enough lip products. And these days, a lot of what I've been doing is wearing like just like a shiny lip oil or a gloss or a chapstick, because I've been trying to get more use out of my eyeshadows. And when I put on a strong eyeshadow, I don't want to put on a strong lip color. So it's just like facing the reality that there's only so much you can put on your face in one day. There's only so much you can use. And I would rather keep kind of like a chic and balanced look on my face all the time than have so much makeup that I feel compelled to like try it out all together all the time and wear it all together all the time, and then have my actual end of the process look be like overdone and be kind of like a casualty of having too much makeup. Like I don't want that to happen. And I feel like if I were to have some Natasha Denona lipsticks lying around, some Huda lipsticks lying around on top of all the lipstick I already have lying around, that would be more and more likely to happen. So at the time I was like, ooh, I wish someone would buy me one of those as a gift with both of those releases. And I was like, I know exactly which one I'm going to put on my wish list. That's how I felt when those products were released. And now that the time is nigh, it's none of them. The Pat McGrath Skin Fetish Foundation I put on this list, and I don't think I would ever actually ask for that as a gift, because I feel like a really expensive foundation was sort of like an awkward and it would be an awkward and confusing thing for my family to sort of like hear me say that I wanted. It just would be like much harder for them to understand, I think, than like a fancy lipstick or something. I wanted to try it so badly when it came out. It's partly the mystique of Pat McGrath and the fact that I think she is so tasteful in terms of the way that she does complexion, and all of the claims seemed like they were written to grip my heart, and I just was like, that sounds like the perfect foundation for me. What transpired is that it didn't get very good reviews, and that's why it's not on this list. It got mixed reviews. Some people loved it, some people didn't love it, and I also don't really wear foundation. I mean, let's be serious. Like, I don't really wear foundation. I don't need a foundation. It's just that that was the one foundation release in this entire year that made me want it. At one time, I would have thought it was natural for me to actually want it, like to want it as a gift or to have it on my theoretical wish list or my theoretical shopping list. Then time passed, and that time passed, and now I don't really want it anymore. I don't really feel like I need to try it. I don't even really feel like I need to get a sample. I might swatch it if I'm ever in store and see if there's a color match for me, but it's just, I'm not really thinking about it that much anymore. And then lastly on this list, hilariously, is the Dior Backstage Glow Phase Palette, which was one of the things that I wanted the most. It might be the thing that I wanted the most during my no-buy year, the original one. There were months in the second half of my no-buy year when I fantasized about my year being over so that I could buy that palette. I wanted it so badly. There was just something about it, everything about it, that compelled me. I wanted it, I wanted it. I had swatched it in store. People had said it was great. I wanted it, I wanted it, I wanted it. And then if you've seen my video about my confusing first time at the mall after the end of my no-buy year, you'll know this, but I actually went to Sephora to buy it and I swatched it. And in that moment, two things were going on. One, I think it was hard for me to stomach spending a quarter of my budget because it was my first month budgeting. And I was so afraid that I was going to spend my budget and then it would be gone and then I would not be able to get something that I wanted even more. So I was really like holding tight to my budget there at the very beginning because I was getting used to the idea of being on a strict budget. And I hadn't bought anything in a year, so there were so many things that I sort of thought I might want. So that was going on. But also then when I swatched it, it was like during my no-buy year when I couldn't buy it, every time I saw it and swatched it, it seemed like magic. It seemed like the best thing that you could ever put on your face. It seemed like it was going to save my life and change me forever and make me famous and transform my personality into one that everybody would love. You know what I mean? Like that's what it seemed like when I swatched it. And then when I entered the store after the end of my no-buy year, with a budget, meaning that I had the opportunity to buy it. Like that was the day on which I could have bought it. It would have been fine. Nothing was stopping me from buying it. And so then with buying it as a viable option, then when I swatched it, I was like, it's just glitter. It's just sheer with glitter. Like it just didn't seem as great. So not being able to get it for myself was part of what made it seem so magical. I think we have to admit that. Now, a year later, I'm ready to admit that. So that was something I thought that I would purchase for myself and didn't, but it was still kind of on my theoretical wish list. After the end of my no-buy year, it entered that realm, it entered that state of being something that I wasn't willing to spend the money on, but that I still would have really wanted for myself and that I would still have really loved to receive as a gift. Then they came out with a second colorway. There's like a Dior Backstage Glow Face Palette Phase 2 that suits my skin tone even better and suits my taste even better. And so you would think that that one would have skyrocketed up onto my list and knocked the other one off. But what has happened is that I've just slowly lost interest over the course of the year, and they barely ever occur to me anymore, those palettes, and they didn't occur to me when I was making my wish list. And I didn't think to put them on this list until I was going back through like my old Sephora Loves list and I saw it on there and I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, it's kind of shocking that that is no longer on my theoretical wish list. And so I wanted to share that with you guys in this video. And that's it. Those are all the things that I thought I wanted, makeup that I thought I wanted at some point or another, makeup that maybe was on my theoretical wish list at one time or another, and that shockingly is no longer anything that I even really want. And I hope that this is fun to watch. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.